Thank you very much and good morning. I'd like to thank the IRI for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about a 2-year project we've been running at PepsiCo that we branded Research Foresights. We've been exploring the use of Strategic Foresight Methods commonly used by futurists, things like inductive scenarios, online games, and other things to help guide our long-term research agenda. I've been doing this for about, I guess, almost 3 years now, and I still get some interesting comments over the course of our work. About every week I'm asked to predict the outcome of games. Every time we go to a workshop, I have one executive vice president always says, there goes Farrington off to predict the future again. So there's one thing I want to take clear of at the very beginning of my presentation, and that is that Research Foresights, or any kind of foresights, is not about predicting the future, okay? Research Foresights is about developing provocative yet plausible views of the future in which you can test your research portfolio in the hopes of finding research projects that will do well across any of the futures you envision. So at the highest level, my presentation in this project is about a portfolio management method in which projects are chosen based on how robust they are across multiple futures. You know, not a single metric. How well would they do independent of which future plays out? I want to spend about 25 minutes describing the work we did to get to this slide, and we'll see it again near the end of the talk, okay? Why did we get interested in this at PepsiCo? Back in 2008, PepsiCo formed 2 longer-range research organizations I show here. I happen to be in PepsiCo Advanced Research. Here we look for breakthroughs in process and packaging technology for both our food and beverage businesses around the world. Our sister organization, Long-Term Research, works in the ingredient space, okay? So we started back in 2008, and of course one of the first things you run up against is how do you choose or decide on the projects you want to work on. And as with any company that works in longer range research, we quickly ran into 2 big challenges. The first of these, I believe, is best summarized by the now late Steve Jobs, who once said, you can't just ask customers what they want and give it to them. By the time you get it built, they'll want something new. Fundamentally, at least for us, the time required to solve breakthrough technical challenges often exceeds the time horizon for our understanding of our consumers. You know, so how do you pick the projects to work on? The second saying I really like goes back to Henry Ford, who once said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. That's very serious. I mean, you know, we are really good at talking to our current customers and consumers, but you cannot talk to your current customers and consumers about what they want 5 to 10 years from now. They just don't know what might be possible. So given those 2 challenges, you know, how do we try and identify projects for our longer range research? What we decided to do was explore the space of and tools used by futurists. And I really believe, since none of our skills were in this area, okay, it's a whole new area, and I had a lot of fun learning it. I think we were quite fortunate back at the beginning of the project to partner with Christian Cruz of Space Consulting. Christian's a thought leader in the whole futurist area, the use of Foresights methods, and he's done it in big companies. So he helped us a lot with this project and kind of was our spirit guide through this 2-year adventure. One of the things Christian first taught me was to look at foresights as an ongoing process that just goes through phases, not an event. I've done events before. The first part of our process we call discovery. That's looking all around today for trends you believe in and also weak signals of things that may or may not happen in the future. Those are pushed out into the future, the number of years you're interested in during the extrapolation phase of our work. And then they're integrated into holistic views of the future in the integration phase, okay? At the end, there's a process for bringing those back into your planning process, which is very important. There's many companies that get through the first 3 and leave nice books on a shelf, never mastered how to bring it back into their portfolio management approach. One of the first things we learned after hooking up with Christian was the future is a very big place. You don't want to start a big workshop and say, we're going to brainstorm about the future. So after about a week of discussion, we picked 2 challenge questions to help focus our work. The first question was, what will be the emerging drivers for global food and beverage consumption 5 to 10 years from now, with an emphasis on the Far East, which is an opportunity for us. The second question we chose was around the future of wellness. What will wellness really mean to people 5 to 10 years from now, given all the advances we're seeing in science and technology? And how would they be making decisions at that point? So those two questions help us focus the work. And armed with those questions, we then populated the high-level process phases with specific tools. One of the biggest things I learned living with futurists for a couple of years is there's a lot of tools, 20, 30, 40, quite robust tools. And the tools you pick depend on the questions you're addressing and your end customer. You'd run a very different project to develop corporate strategy versus an innovation agenda and use different tools, okay? So what we chose to use for in the discovery phase was an internal futures audit, which establishes what your company believes about the future. Then environmental scanning, where we had companies look all over the world for weak signals of things that might happen. They may or may not happen, might become important in the future. Those are pushed out into the future using implications wheels and formal technology forecasting and extrapolations part. Up to this point, the parts of our process and the tools are independent of which of the questions we're thinking about. But the project split at that point. We chose to do inductive scenario exercises for the future of consumption question. And we ran an online participatory futures game inside the company, partnering with Institute for the Future for the wellness question. And those come together at the end in portfolio management. So what I want to do this morning is briefly go through these and talk about the results. What I'm first going to do is fly over the discovery and extrapolation quickly at about 40,000 feet, because all the heavy lifting is really in the scenario work, okay? And just like one slide for each of these and show what this looks like. So in the internal futures audit, we had a third party actually interview about 30 PepsiCo executives. Now, what do you believe are really going to be the key drivers we should be watching for the future? They also reviewed about 50 internal reports we found on 5 to 10 year out futures for the company. There was a consensus at the high levels about these 6 drivers. They shouldn't be a surprise. These are the things people believe strongly in today, and they're driving our decision making. It was interesting that while there was agreement to the 6, there was not agreement to what to do about the 6. Okay? And if you get a hold of this futures report, I think it's worth reading just for the 50 internal reports it found that nobody knew we'd even done. You know, so it has several different values. Okay, these are the things we believe in. We engaged 3, don't worry about the detail in this slide. We engaged 3 firms to look for weak signals of things that might come to pass in the future in the environmental scanning section. They came back with 400 hits. We prioritized these down to about the 50 or so shown here. But the real point is to see that we did not make this just a technology scan. These have all the steep categories of society, technology, economics, environment, and politics. And we needed that to form holistic views of the future down the road for idea generation. A few of my favorites, though. Do-it-yourself biotechnology. We heard about this a couple of IRI meetings ago, where we heard about BioCurious. There's now a GenSpace biohacking lab running in New York City. Growing infrastructure for small businesses, everything from the micro-banking we've seen for years, to a Dawala-like networks for distribution systems, and finally, the rise of the megacities. There'll be like 1 billion new customers in the developing countries in the next 10 years, and half will be in the biggest cities. The 8 largest cities in the world will have the same population the U.S. did in the late 1960s, 10 years from now. So that's the environmental scanning part. I flew by that really quickly. It's about 6 months of work, but it lays the foundation for everything that's coming. In the extrapolation phase, we want to move those out into the future. And first we did that with implications wheels. This is an example. These are workshops. We involved hundreds of people in workshops over the course of this project. In implications wheels, you suspend any debate about whether the weak signal is going to happen or not. You assume it will. And you just brainstorm first, second, third order impacts of that weak signal. We ran 3 day-long workshops to develop, I think, 12 of these. to project some of the weak signals out in the future. It's very workshop friendly. It has its lighter moments. One of the weak signals led to an implication that we'd have a world with fewer attorneys. We threw that one out for not passing our hurdle for plausibility. But anyway, it's actually quite a lot of fun to engage a number of scientists in that. So that was 3 day-long workshops. Did about a dozen of those. And then in the technology forecasting workshop, which ran a day, there were about 10 areas we had really deep interest in, so we invited in recognized experts to tell us what they thought the future might be like 5 to 10 years from now. We had Mike Nova from Pathway Genomics talking about the future of genetic testing. Said in a few years you'll get your DNA done for less than $100. The week he said that, 23andMe had a $29.99 special to get your DNA done, so the future's coming quickly. We had Ken Mandel from Harvard Med School talking to us about a future in which the privacy issues have been overcome, so electronic medical records in the cloud are connected for the betterment of everybody. Last week we had Bruce German from UC Davis talking about the future of personalized health. So that was a really thought-provoking day for us also. If we go back to our roadmap, what we've done now is we've taken most of the weak signals and trends and we've moved them out into the future. So everything we have now is 5 to 10 years out into the future. And this is where the project split, and we did inductive scenarios for the consumption question and an online game for wellness. One of the things I felt was a little unique in the approach we learned from Christian was this is designed around the collision between things you feel strongly will happen and things that might or might not happen, as opposed to many Foresights exercises I've listened to where we're just going to talk about the things we believe are going to happen and what you got to do about them. So this was really designed around the collision of things that you believe in and things that might happen. Okay? So I'm going to go into the inductive scenarios part, and we chose to do inductive scenarios rather than deductive ones. I don't know how many have done scenario work. The most common thing and what you see from GBN and other companies are deductive scenarios, kind of the 2x2 approach. We thought inductive scenarios might be a little more fertile territory for an R&D agenda. They're very different from deductive scenarios. At least the model we followed, we looked for interactions between the weak signals and the global trends, built small systems, and then watched those interact. Compared to deductive, it's very messy. It's not quite as straightforward to do. And the space of the inductive scenario emerges during the work. You know, it's not predetermined like a 2x2 kind of scenario exercises. But we developed 3 of those that I'm going to walk through now. I'm going to take the first one in real detail. So we're dropping from 40,000 feet to about 100 to show how we actually did one of these. And then I'll come back and just talk about the last couple briefly. And we'll have a brief video for each of them, kind of like an elevator video, if you will. Okay? So like I said, these are built from looking for interactions between the trends you believe in and things that might happen. And that's exactly what we did with large posters that were filled in with the real information, but across the posters at the bottom would be 10-year projections of some of the trends from the futures audit you believe in. Okay? And across the top would be impacts from some of the weak signals that might be of interest given the trends you're thinking about, okay? And then we spent days looking for how they might interact. We had 3 day-long workshops to develop 24 of these for different trends and weak signals that might cause a trend to become more important or less important, okay? All I remember about that day was feeling my head was going to explode at the end. That is a lot of work, you know, and it's not as straightforward as deductive ones. But picture yourself with all these individual linkages laying around on the floor, and this is step 1. There's 3 steps. Step 2 is to go looking for simple systems, okay? And an example is here with China's Generation Y, you know, that's growing up now. Do not look at these like cause and effect. One box leads to the other. They're just relationship diagrams among things that you'd expect to happen together. But at about 10 o'clock, you see China's 6-on-1 generation. And about 7 o'clock, one of the conclusions we reached was, you know, you're going to see a very selfish, affluent youth coming up When in our space, they're going to be expecting quite customized products exactly when they want them. It's going to be very demanding. And how would we cope with that? What we did actually the consultants kind of went away and came back with this part. We probably built a dozen of these different systems. Everything from China's Generation Y to crowdsourced innovation, strategic biodiversity, embracing downstream innovation, giving up your current models for innovation and supply chain. So anyway, we had about a dozen of these, which was a lot of work. And building an inductive scenario then becomes looking for different subsystems that share something. And for example, here are three. Don't go reading the fine print. My one concession to the attorneys and confidentiality is, except for the one up in the upper right, all the boxes have placeholders. But the systems are real. So this one looks at what these three systems have in common, and you build an inductive scenario by letting them come together. We called this one Culture Innovation Scenario. And basically it's posing the following question. You have large megacities filled with very demanding consumers. What would it be like if you had to give up your current distribution and innovation processes and embrace downstream innovation to compete in that kind of future? Okay? For each of the three scenarios, for the purposes of socializing them across the company, is a detailed report. We did a narrative out in the future that I made available for folks to play on their way to work on iPods. We had 7-8 minute videos, and then short 1 to 2 minute video trailers, like an elevator video, as I said. So what I'd like to do now is play the first video, please, Todd, and we'll do this for each of the three scenarios.
PepsiCo's Shou Zhang revolutionized how the company makes and distributes its products in China. Now she has been asked by PepsiCo to take her methods global. Business Week sat down with her to talk about her remarkable story and the power of letting go. Shou Zhang worked with PepsiCo Research and Development Group in China to develop an idea for branded, low-cost, environmentally friendly packaging for a Dabawala network in China. Going beyond the Indian model, it had the advantage of using printed circuits and GPS sensors that were pennies apiece to communicate with a delivery network. The PepsiCo R&D group knew of several new ingredients that could have a positive impact on the health of consumers. Unfortunately, they were blocked due to the high cost of rigorous testing requirements. And so they went to GenSpace Shanghai. GenSpace is an open-source community biohacking lab that educates youth and anyone interested in biology. The Shanghai facility performed crowdsourced testing to help PepsiCo meet the obligations of regulators. And Shou Zhang found success. By 2019, the model was working well in Shanghai. She was granted permission to roll it out in 3 other Chinese cities. But success also brought publicity.
Exactly. Global NGOs swarmed in, raising food safety concerns. The government stepped in to shut us down in early 2019.
Again, it was the PepsiCo R&D group to the rescue. After many late nights, they developed packaging capable of self-testing for spoilage. In 6 months, Shou Zhang was back in business. She is currently working in Purchase, New York, charged with expanding the model to cities around the developing world and even in the US and Europe.
Okay, so the question posed by that one is, how would you handle that kind of future, and what research would you take on today in anticipation of it? Okay, so back to the slide. I'm just briefly going to show the other 2 scenarios at a really high level. Here we go. The second one was around supply disruption, and this looked at 3 systems interacting. We're all watching China build interesting coalitions and acquire assets around the world. Global food disruptions, not collapses, but disruptions occur all the time. And how would individual countries and regions adapt to that? So could we play the second video, Todd?
It's 2022, and the world is unrecognizable to our global food manufacturers. Business models and supply systems as we know them no longer apply. China has built extensive infrastructures and business partnerships in countries around the world. The economic impact has left food shortages and governmental collapse, but has also secured China's agricultural capacity for the future. Regions are developing sustainable ways to localize food supplies. Companies have quickly embraced new technologies and strategies to carve new paths for success. Can these new practices continue adapting to such disruptive change?
In the food and beverage industry today, being able to say that your products were made from locally grown raw materials is a great marketing idea. The question here is, what if it becomes an operational necessity? And what research should we be doing in anticipation of that? The final scenario, there we go, has to do with health and wellness space, and really envisions a future where smart packaging, apps and sensors, DNA, EMR, and all are connected through the cloud. We're all walking around with sensors, and HealthWell is actually a global health monitoring system watching all of that. So we could play the last, these 3 videos, Todd.
We can monitor our personal health with embedded biosensors and real-time genetic reporting. RFID and smart product packaging lets the world around us sense and respond to our wants. We've all benefited from our health coach avatars and health hotspot alerts. The smart data system behind it all is known as HealthWell, and it's continuing to evolve on its own accord. Organizations around the world, in the public and private sector alike, have recognized HealthWell's potential. Every day they tap into its infinite resource of information, our information.
So the question here is, what role should companies be playing in that type of future, and how could we use the information we get from it? Back to my... Back to the slide. There we go. Okay. So that's all the work to get back to the slide I showed at the beginning. And working with folks that are here in the Princeton Partners Group and others, we had the 3 scenarios now. And what we did was we engaged hundreds of people, probably 2 weeks of workshops, to brainstorm new product, business model, and services ideas independently in these 3 different futures. And like I said at the beginning, in the hopes that you'd find some projects that would do well in all of the futures. So basically, you're picking projects based on robustness across multiple futures. Not a financial calculation as much as a lot of other models, okay? We found it to be very thought-provoking. A number of these projects will come into our project portfolio. That's what we're doing today. And some of the, I think, I don't have the number, but quite a few will be followed up on with research funding next year. The last thing I want to do with just a few minutes is talk about the participatory futures leg of the work for the wellness question. We took on a participatory futures game for 2 reasons. One is, one of our stated goals was to explore different methods. And this gave us an opportunity to do that. The other reason is, if you ask people how they're going to eat and exercise, they basically lie. I'm going to do better, I'm going to do better and do better. But if you Institute for the Future is really a leader in building games, which you put people in situations where you can back out the true behavior. So that's what we did. I'll go through this quickly. If you've never seen a large-scale participatory futures game, go check out The World Without Oil. We built with Institute for the Future a game we called Make Every Calorie Count. Folks were sent into different cells. Different cells in this game, put in different future situations or vignettes, and they competed to come up with solution strategies for the situation they were put in, okay? There's a lot of work behind it. I mean, it wasn't random. The cells populated this matrix of the steep categories across the top, and myself, my family, my community, and my planet across the side. Examples where your friends are watching. There's sensors everywhere. Your neighbors know what you're eating, drinking, and wasting. Would that change your behavior? Technology. Would you wear a pair of glasses that block from your view the things you should not be buying? Collaborative consumers. We all see that in Groupon, but how far would you go? And how does trust transfer across these different groups? And the final example, local rules. What if your municipality outlawed something you'd like to have on occasion? What would you do? So there were future vignettes in all 20 of the pockets or cells of this research. Folks would go into one of them, and they'd see a short video about that one, and then go into the game room where you put in your idea. Ideas are listed down the left. people like it, they nominate it for a vote. And the one that gets vote get a win and a chip on the board. And the teams competed for that. We had teams of 88 doing that. And I'll show one slide on the results after the last video, which shows what how we recruited people into the game, playing this video on websites around PepsiCo.
Consumers care more than ever about their health and well-being. So when it comes to deciding what to eat and drink, they face a world of complex choices. They have to ask themselves, how do I want to make every calorie count?
I never even used to think about calories until I had kids. My kids like food that's fun to eat, but of course, I want to make sure that it's good for them too. So I use my smartphone to scan the labels and get as much information as I can. And of course, I try to make meal times as fun as possible too. We cook and eat together almost every night of the week.
The environment, that's what making every calorie count is all about. I've been telling my mom to look for carbon footprints and water footprints and to buy food that is locally produced.
I work really long hours and I don't have a lot of time to eat during the day. I'm looking for foods that are super convenient and super healthy. But eating out is an important part of my social life too. So I want those calories to help me relax and feel good.
I don't know much about calories, but I love shopping at the new big box stores. I'm impressed with the great variety of food and drinks, and I know the packaged food is safe and of a high quality, and that's what's important to me.
In my community, we are very committed to reducing waste. The town has banned certain types of food containers and everyone I know composts. But I'm also on a tight budget, so I try to make my calories count by not buying more than I can eat or drink. I hate having to throw food away, even if it is good for my garden.
When I was younger, I loved to snack on the fried desserts I would buy at the market. Today, I try to avoid them because my doctor and my son keep telling me that they are not good for my health. Thankfully, dark chocolate is. So now every day, I make sure I indulge in calories that are good for me and satisfy my sweet tooth as well.
In the next 10 years, the choices consumers are going to have to make about what they eat and drink will become even more complex than they are today. Imagine yourself shaping that future. Make every calorie count will immerse you in a world of possibilities. Working with other players, you'll come up with ways to help consumers make every calorie count in 2020. Get ready to play.
Okay, so I have one slide on the results of that. That game ran for 2 weeks across PepsiCo. There we go. And okay, some of the results are here. To me, this was a great learning activity and successful on multiple levels. I mean, it generated great ideas and so on and so forth. But when the team went into their team room, we had a Google map of where their partners were. So there were teams of 88, and there are very few activities across PepsiCo that get people engaged from all over the world like this, and they all learned a lot from each other. I'll wrap up with just a few conclusions here. We thought this can play a big role to help us with our research agenda. The model we used a lot of workshops. We don't have a department to do this. We found the inductive scenarios very thought-provoking. Engaging a lot of people helps the buy-in at the end, obviously. I'd say be careful how you post-process the scenarios. And the game, as I said, was, I thought, successful on multiple levels and a very cost-effective way to engage the whole enterprise. One slide to acknowledge the different partners we had. This is quite a large piece of work for us, and our entire Research Foresights department's up on stage right now. So we did this a lot with some of the best consultants around the world that helped us. And with that, just like to say thank you for your time, and may have time for one question, I'm not sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ted. I think we probably do have time for just about one question. Any volunteers? So Ted, let me ask you to elaborate. You mentioned a couple of times in there at the end in your conclusions about processing the scenarios. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. You invest a lot of work to get these robust views of the future, and I've made mistakes analyzing them more than once. You know, one time I sent the technologists right into them. Another time we took a persona approach. But you know, in today's research, you would never send just your technologists in our business to a consumer group to listen to consumers. You really have to take a step of finding professional consumer researchers you put out into those futures that then translate them into the needs of the people your technologists can put projects against. I made the mistake of not doing that twice. Okay?
Any other questions? Okay, great. Let's thank our speaker once more.
Thank you very much.